Bum 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 bum. Hi everybody, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion Sejan Sarwick. How you doing, Sejan?
Every so often we really get to talk about a movie, Devin.
I just figured we paid for the song, we should use it.
Did we now?
Oh, we didn't, but the movie that we're talking about. Also, if you listen to how I'm doing it, Under Pressure by David Bowie and Queen goes bum 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 ba bum 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 ba bum bum, but I'm actually going bum 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 ba bum 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 ba bum bum bum. It's clearly distinctly different, and that's why I'm ice, baby. Yeah, sometimes I cut you off at the knees because I cannot believe how many times this movie started with Under Pressure. 4 times. It played 4 times within like the first 3 minutes of this movie.
I know.
I know. But I did.
This movie is So we discovered that this movie had never been released in theaters, right? This was a straight to Showtime original film.
Yes, that is the truth. This was a straight to Showtime, originally screened at Sundance. It was purchased for distribution by Showtime. Remember Showtime? Actually, Showtime's probably my favorite of the pay cable networks. I have to be honest about that. I just have to be the person who puts that out there. And I mean, I can deal with it. I can deal with the slings and arrows of that. But, jeez. Yeah, no. So this was never in theaters. Which, gosh. All right, so first of all, I guess to start, the first thing, and this is a bit of housekeeping, we are stress testing our network tonight because Say Report Jr. is recording at the same time. Usually we don't do that. So if there's any drops or blips or bingos, that's the reason why, is because we're putting a lot of stress on the old internet tubes at Casa del Decker tonight. And yeah, so just be aware of that. The second thing is, just for housekeeping purposes, we are recording this on the 13th of May, 2026. Just in case anything happens between us recording it and its release next Monday. We didn't not talk about it only because we weren't aware that it happened yet. I like to get ahead of that, especially with just how fucking crazy the world is right now. The third thing...
But that's okay, because this month we're a little bit more focused.
We are certainly more focused, because it's Brendan Fraser History Month. Oh, but I wanted to brag that this time we're recording early because I'm the one who has an event on Sunday, which means we can't record on Sunday. Also, I can't talk about it. However, that is in my journal, because it's just an insane thing that I have noticed about a very specific group of my friends. And if you're listening, you know who you are. But yeah, so what it is, it's Brendan Fraser History Month, and weirdly, we've kind of gone in this direction of sort of film festival darlings. I liked your whole saccharine, like heavy melodrama, soap operatic stuff, and this one was more operatic than soap, if anything. But it really has made for kind of this bananas start that is going to end with a film in Rental Family that pretty much, spoilers for next week's episode, but like, this is where it's going to start. And then I promise we're going to talk about Twilight of the Golds, because there's a lot to discuss here. Even if not...
Yeah, that's the movie, by the way.
Yeah, Twilight of the Golds. Which I would say make sure you watch it, but honestly, the fact that I was able to find it kind of blows me away. I honestly, this is one of those things that I'm a big fan of doing, like the 30th anniversaries of things. And this one is certainly very prescient when we consider, that what the subject matter is, and we'll get there. The thing I want to say is that Rental Family, one of the primary things that you and I discussed after seeing it was how it went from like the festival scene, wherever it was made, to getting distribution in America. That was certainly a focal point of our discussion. Which brings us to the Twilight of the Golds. Because the Twilight of the Golds is based on a play that came out in 1993, written by Jonathan Tollins, that eventually made it to Broadway. And it had 29 performances. So if you're playing along at home, that means it had 11 more performances than High Fidelity, the musical. These are the things that were going through my head during the watching of this film. I just need to be honest with you. But the first question I have about this movie, before we even get to the topic of it, is why do you decide to make a film out of a play that failed on Broadway?
I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why people pick up
Right.
odd projects, man. I mean, like, you do it because you feel like maybe there's something there that was missed. You know, maybe you do it because you just spent so much time with the fucking thing because you've been like doing a research paper that you decide you just want to put the damn fucker up. There's all sorts of reasons why people will choose to do that. I think there's, we come from a world of theater, and we've talked about this once or twice on the main show, but not enough. We are used to a world in which we see these stories time and time again put up. We see somebody taking a swing at like, why are you going to do this play when it failed 50 years ago? Well, maybe now's the time it doesn't fail. And sometimes that happens. Not often, but every now and then you get that one that hits a little bit later than it did when it first arrived, But like, there's no shame in somebody doing something like that. There's no question. Like, there is no moment where anybody really says like, was this worth it?
Right.
There is definitely, in the criticism of it, there is, but I'm saying like in the choice to like put art on,
Exactly.
like, there isn't anybody there that's going to be like, well, why this and not that? That's such a big question to ask about just like the act of just doing something.
True. Very true. And I do want to make sure, the reason why I posited that question was to make sure that you and I were on the same page about that. Because I still think that there was merit in taking this story that, I mean, it's a weird sort of tale. This is a story that did very well. Like, across the country, when the play version of Twilight of the Golds was performed, people seemed to lap it up. People seemed to really enjoy everything that was going on. And where it failed is when it finally premiered on Broadway. And I don't know if we should put a pin in this until after we talk about what it's about, but I think the story of the Twilight of the Golds is really exemplary of something we talk about a lot on the Say Report. And that is people maybe taking the wrong message away from it.
Yeah. I think that there's definitely this is a dangerous movie. We got to talk about what it's about, because
Yes.
I think that it would make much more sense.
So we can hold it. So I think the weirdest part about this film, The Twilight of the Golds, we're introduced to Susan and David. Is it Suzanne or it's Suzanne? Suzanne, played by Jennifer Beals, and David, played by Brendan Fraser. They're brother and sister. Jennifer Beals, Suzanne, is the older sibling. David is the younger sibling. And they're not like best friends, but they're not estranged. It's just that as they've grown, they've kind of, grown a little bit apart, as siblings tend to do when they're not living under the same roof. I mean, I have no real experience about that, but
no, but also the idea of, like the situation with David also drives them apart, as much as they don't want to admit it.
I was hiding the situation
they're
for
close.
the review.
They're the, out of all of David's family, she is the one he is the closest to. Let's put it that way.
Right. But even then, it opens with this long monologue set over home movies, and David wonders if he and Suzanne will be as close as they've always been. The dreaded secret about David that they treat it so... It's treated so strangely that in my head I was inventing scenarios that made it worse, if that makes any sense. But David is gay. David is a homosexual. though there's a moment very early on in the film that is hyper telling, and it's certainly, I imagine that as somebody who has worked on plays, I imagine that it's supposed to be kind of the first gotcha moment for the audience. Is David takes a bite of a macaroon, and then Suzanne takes the same macaroon and also takes a bite, and their mother, Phyllis, played by Faye Dunaway, is like, no, don't eat things that have been in his mouth. Because this play was originally written in 1993, so like kind of in the heart of a lot of fear about the AIDS epidemic. So like this has everything that would go into plays that were written in the 90s. I don't mean to laugh at that, but it is.
Well, no, what's the docudrama that they showed everybody in about the kid delivering papers? Ryan White, was that his name?
Yeah, Ryan White. Yeah.
Yeah, you inevitably watch some story about Ryan White. Like at this time, it was being shown to kids. It's like, we need to talk about AIDS because as a country right now, we trust in science and medicine and
yeah.
Because if we don't talk about it now, 30 years from now, we're fucked.
Well, yeah, that's yeah, but they're so like he gets her. David arrives at his family's home to celebrate the 3-year anniversary of his sister and her husband. John Tenney is the actor. Rob is the name of the husband. That's right. That's one of the reasons why my mind jumped to High Fidelity. So it's their anniversary party, and Rob is going to go watch basketball with their father, played by Gary Marshall. Walter is his name. And they're going to go play basketball, and then the women, this is totally in air quotes, are going to busy themselves in the kitchen. And as soon as Phyllis, Suzanne, and David are in the kitchen, Phyllis is giving him the nth degree about like, you've lost weight. Is everything okay? And he has this really great response of like, oh, that's right, I lose a little bit of weight. You think suddenly everything that you've read at the Memorial Hospital is to be believed. Like, yeah, like he is in a shit situation. That is what the first scene of this movie is that his whole family really is not cool with the fact that he is a homosexual in the 1990s.
Well, so I think that this is part of the bit is that just to kind of give everybody a sense of the vibe, they consider themselves to be very liberal. They're a straight up, I think that is like on the nose, like Gary Marshall has a line at some point about how liberal they are.
We're very liberal.
But then we're
people,
supposed
David.
to see, right? But you're supposed to see in the ways that they act that it's all a sham, right? Because of the ways in which they treat David and other things that happen in the rest of this film, and so there's just this, they're it really kind of begs the question now, which is good because of where this movie goes. Like, is this hyper realism? Is this like a little absurd, right? Like it is, right? Because these people are just over the top in which the ways in which they are not cool with their son being gay, and not in like if they felt this much about him being gay at this point, they would just be mean to him. And they're somehow trying so hard not to be the whole time. And it's like upsetting to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. This was an uncomfortable film is just the first thing I'm going to say. But then we have to get to what feels like the elephant in the room. And that is that Rob, Suzanne's husband of 3 years, works at a laboratory that is working on mapping out the human genome. Now that's a real thing. We have mapped out the human genome. When they find out that Suzanne is pregnant, and they play under pressure no less than 4 times to let us know how much pressure she's under about that, Rob's boss at it's like Karen Laboratories is just like the Karon, just to make sure. He's like, oh, you should give your baby the test that we have to look for genetic markers. Now the genetic markers,
like Rob Reiner's stunt double.
He looked like Santa Claus. He gave vibes of like older Bob Hoskins, like unleashed Bob Hoskins.
And I could never, oh man, I could never get a handle on like where exactly he fell on in the politics of this film. Like it seemed like he was very like pro science and pro gene, like, using, mapping the genome and stuff, which is a cool thing that we did, and definitely was like something that has benefited things like births and stuff like that. But then also he seemed like he was pretty open about the fact that he also would get rid of a child if he found out.
which is also kind of weird, because there's the whole I've been single, I don't have a wife, I've never had a wife. So like that almost felt like the kind of messages that were coded in the 90s for somebody who might be gay but like isn't ready to admit it or doesn't want to admit it to the world. like he really was
bachelor, right?
What was that?
Like the overly eligible bachelor.
Yeah, like that whole thing. Like
that's the trope, I think. Yeah.
It really was like this thing where like I didn't really get to read on him. And then also I felt like he was supposed to be like the most impartial individual in the whole thing. Like clearly there's no such thing as true impartiality. Everybody has some sort of leanings, right? You do the best that you can. But, we are the culmination of all of our experiences. And I do agree with you that, like, he does agree that, like, this is the reason that the science exists, is that if something undesirable about a potential offspring is found out, we can stop it before that child is born and has to live with that. Like, that really honestly seems to be his argument in a lot of it. Which is just...
Yeah, but you would think that they would mean something like a severe physical disability or mental disability, right? But no. In this case, they're mapping out the human genome, and they discover that they can figure out when your baby's going to be gay.
Yes. And that is such a... it's such a leap to try to make this whole movie happen. Like,
but that's why I go back to what I was saying before, is that like you really have to consider that this is just a hyper realistic parable of a story. Like it's trying to be. Whether or not it sticks the landing is to be discussed. But like I think that they are very much going over the top with this movie, with every choice that they can make.
Yes, I don't think they know what the top is.
I'm looking for.
Like camp just. I don't even know. Like camp also, it's such a... This is a strange movie because a pseudoscience that is based enough in actual science to be dangerous is the central crux of this story.
Exactly.
And that, like, that's... Like, I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about it. So then she finds out about it, and he comes home. Like, at the same time, I also half expect his boss at the laboratory to welcome me to Jurassic Park. Like, he talks about cloning. Like, he is, like, such an absurd science fiction scientist in some ways. And then...
I have a flea circus in my office if you want to come and see.
But then Rob comes home with the results, and they're in like that government, like classified document style briefcase. Like, you're not ready for this. And then the way that they approach every time, we're like, well, there's a good chance that our baby's going to be born like David. And it's just like, what the like, they can't even bring themselves to say that he's going to be gay, which is just crazy to me.
This movie is, yeah. So this movie obviously goes off the rails, right? Like this movie pretty quickly. Like it decides that it's going to take this really huge swing and really go for this. But it feels like these are not good people, right? Like, so like, I think that these arguments and things that they're having, we're supposed to recognize that they're not good people, right? Like, or aren't we supposed to feel like complicated feelings about feeling similar or something? Because I really don't.
Well, Sejan, I'm glad I'm pulling the pin. This might be a short episode. I gotta be honest with everybody on this one, because I just don't like. There's definitely merits to do here, but I don't know if I I don't feel as compelled to do an episode the length of the movie on the Twilight of the Golds. I'm going to admit that
Yeah.
here. So I am going to pull the pin on that question that I said about people maybe taking the wrong lesson from it. And I feel like when this show is playing across the country, right, it is being viewed by people who are looking at these characters and are seeing complex individuals asking questions that they themselves in the audience would ask themselves if they had the ability to gain this knowledge. Right?
At the very least, they know somebody like that. If it's not them themselves, they know, oh yeah, this reminds me of mom and dad, or this reminds me of my brother, like that idea of familial, like it's familiar to the people in the Midwest, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, it plays in Peoria. Like, this story plays in Peoria. Like, without a doubt. But then you come to New York in the 90s. And, I mean, like, say what you will about coastal elitism, there's some truth, because they see a show like this and they're like, why do I need to watch a 90-minute play that just enforces all of my stereotypes about how backwards some people think in this world, and is, like, trying to make me feel some sort of way about this question? The obvious answer is no, right? And, I mean, I'll admit, like, the question in this movie, the central crux of this film is Jennifer Beals, right, Flashdance, sitting there contemplating aborting her child because there's a 90% chance it will be born a homosexual. And that is
like, that's not extrapolation. That's not interpretation. They have that exact conversation multiple times.
And that, to me, is just the most insane thing that I could ever think of. Like it's a child, right? You should do everything you can. Like, how, what the hell? Like, that doesn't even register for me as, like, a problem. It's got 10 fingers and toes. It's not going to be born with its lungs on the outside of its body, right? Like, there are, like, real things that if it were to be determined, I would get it. I'd understand it.
Well, and I want to point something out, because I know we're going to focus more on the whole, like, gene therapy stuff and, like, would you have a gay son stuff that is in this movie, right? But I also think, and I think this movie does a disservice to that conversation for a lot of what you're talking about. This, like, once this kind of gets into a larger audience's hands, there's not as many people that would connect with this as they thought, I think. But then on top of that, it also does a huge disservice to the concept of abortion, because, like, there is a reason why people need to make that choice, and this ain't it. Like, it kind of makes a mockery of the actual pain that people go through when they have to actually consider that choice, right? Like, and it is a choice. like there's just this idea that like abortion is treated as if it's just like, like a trash can. They're just going to throw out a memo. Like, it's awful.
Dude, not everything that you just said, but then the film literally makes a mockery of abortion when Jennifer Beals likens an abortion that David had to get for his high school girlfriend when she got pregnant. Marnie, I don't remember her last name, and I feel bad about that. But David, when he was in high school, was in a relationship with a woman, got her pregnant, and then because he couldn't go to his parents, he went to his older sister, and she helped have that taken care of. And she's like, you're one to talk, remember Marnie? And it's like, that is not the same at all. There is no parity between these two things. Like, yeah, we were children. We were ill-prepared to have a child. We made the tough decision. Also, Marnie is not there for it. It's all how David felt. It is such an out-of-pocket scene. Like, it's that she would throw it at him that, like, you were okay with an abortion then. But, like, Jennifer Beals.
But I think that, but I do think that goes to what you were saying, though, about how there are people in the audience that are going to say these things, that are going to think these things, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so this is speaking directly to the people that feel that way, and like, so I don't, like, it really comes down to, we just have to assume the intention of the artist at all moments in these things, and we've learned time and time again that you just can't. So like, this movie is really just such a hard watch because of it.
Yeah, I mean, that sequence, because you're right, because they trivialize what abortion is, right? It's not Dirty Dancing, where like Penny's choice is get this abortion or like or lose money. Like she is in just the worst thing. And then the fact that like that's why Baby has to step in and learn the dance so that this woman can do a thing that prevents her life from being just like kind of taken away from her by a snobby rich kid who also works at the camp, right? Like the pressure and the pressure, I'll use pressure, of that abortion that is weighing on Penny in Dirty Dancing. There's a reason why I say Dirty Dancing is about abortion. But then look at other films that have actually treated abortion as like a real thing, an actual thing that exists in our world, and not just well, we'll delete this baby and then you'll get another baby. Right? That was not my best Gary Marshall, but that's sort of what like how
Gary Marshall. Sorry,
yeah,
every time you say his name, I just want to.
You just want to say it. You just want to do it. I get it. Like, and it hurt because like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, you feel that whole story with Stacy. Like abortion has weight to it. That choice is not an easy choice. And in this movie, they're just like, yeah, no, it's going to be nothing. It's going to be fucking nothing. We get rid of this kid because it's going to be gay. Next kid's going to be perfect. What?
Yeah. Well, and it also really sucks because it shows that level of privilege that they have, right?
Yes.
We grew up knowing who the bad guys were, right? And so like, I guess what it is like, we didn't need to see this movie because like this conversation was had the generation before us, essentially. I don't know, because obvious, like you said before, the answers are always so obvious. Like, no, you do not go and get an abortion just because there's a chance your child might be homosexual. You consider the fact for a moment that if that's what's going to make them happy, then maybe that's okay. And this is not to say that like there are not other reasons why you might want to consider an abortion, but that just ain't it.
That cannot be. And it almost, I mean, like, there is also some weird depth to this story in this film in the terms of the fact that it almost feels like Suzanne is looking for an excuse to terminate the pregnancy. Like, is that just a read that I got? But like, with all the under pressure and all the other stuff about like,
but no, just to, I mean, like to wrap up kind of the overview of the film and to kind of respond to that, she does end up basically kicking Rob out of her life because he's like, you're going to get an abortion if we're going to stay together. I can't raise this child. And she's like, actually, I'm going to raise this child, and kicks him out. So like the last 30 minutes of this movie is very much her as like a proud, single mom, right? Like so I don't think that that's what it is. I think it might even be the opposite. It's so she wants to keep the baby, but she's now wondering with everything that she's seen in her life. I think this would have been a more nuanced take. I don't think the movie actually does this, but essentially it's her idea is she's the only one that's thinking, like, but what if this child just wants to have that life? And you see that kind of in the conversation with the religious stuff when they go to see Rob's parents and they sit down to have Shabbat dinner with them, and then they're talking to them about, are you going to raise them Jewish, or, Orthodox, specifically Jewish? And they're just like, no, we're going to let the kid grow up and decide what they want to do for themselves. That clearly, right, on the nose, like, oh, well, this is what we're doing with religion. Why can't this not also be the same thing about gender and sexuality? Like, why does this need to suddenly be this whole? It's fucking wild that they don't lean more into that, because that is a much more mature conversation, and to show that Jessica Biel's being the only one actually thinking like that, because these people are all selfish, like every character, even David has the benefit of being morally correct through most of this movie, so
doesn't mean he's not selfish.
He doesn't come off as, but he is still selfish.
Also, it's Jennifer Beals, not Jessica Biel's. I would kind of watch that movie too. I gotta be honest with you.
Jennifer Beals. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if Justin Timberlake were playing the father. I'm sorry, I'm stopping. Because, woo, that could have gone some sort of way. But no, everybody in this film is selfish. You bring up a good point there. And that is a more nuanced take, is that, like, based on religion, so much of a child's life is supposed to be predetermined. But you want to reject the faith argument, but science says this kid's going to be gay. We got to get rid of this kid. And I am going to, because you talk about the film and how the film has that happy ending. Are you familiar with how the play ends?
No, I am not.
Okay.
Why is he?
So in the play, Suzanne gets the abortion, but because of complications during the abortion, she loses her ability to have any other children.
I did read that, yeah.
Which, like, that's very different than the third act of this film that we watch.
It is. It is very much so, yeah.
That is,
it's basically like, Romeo and Juliet not dying at the end.
That's like sliding doors, completely different path for the film. And there's that whole moment, where I'm feeling like, in some ways, I feel like she doesn't want to have this kid, and everybody around her who does, like, so then she has that moment where she goes, like, to get the checkup with the obstetrician, and she sees the ultrasound, and you see her, like, armor start to break a little bit. And then you have that conversation with Rosie O'Donnell's character, who I guess is the owner of the clothing shop, if Suzanne is supposed to be the manager of the clothing shop. That's what that felt like, right? I just want to make sure that I understood their relationship.
So that she was more like the financier, whereas Suzanne was the more like the ideas person, right? Gotcha, like you have, so I felt like they were both kind of responsible to somebody else, I guess, but maybe I missed that.
I don't know. It's just like the way that it was just strange. It seemed like Rosie O'Donnell had a little bit more responsibility than her. And if it looked like it was a smaller business, I just imagine that she owned it and Suzanne manages it. I mean, again, they don't ever go into it. We are giving it more thought than the film does. But she has this conversation with her about having the ultrasound. And she's like, I wish I were you. I wish I could have your kid. And she's like, you'll have kids someday. And she's like, no, I can't. I'm unable to have children. So then that is a moment that changes Suzanne's thoughts about whether or not she could get rid of this child, this thing. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of that trope either, right? In the wake of Mother's Day. And, like, we've had a lot of, like, changes as a society about, like, it is not a woman's purpose only to bear children anymore, right? So, like, the decision not to have, like, it's a very thing. Or the people who can't have children, right? Being like, oh, if you're never a mother, you're not experiencing the full amount of life. Like, fuck you for that thought process. And then, like, that's a big trope that happens in this film. And then she goes out with the wig master from Seinfeld, Brandon, who works at sorry, that's all I could think of.
No, it was good. It was a good pull. Yeah.
They go out to this little bar, Kavanaugh's, and rather than discuss her, like, fears about this with her actual homosexual brother, and granted at that point they are a bit estranged because everybody has said we would kill the baby. Everybody up to that point has said to David, this baby should not live because being a homosexual is so difficult. And I'm not trying to say that it's not difficult. I'm just saying it's a bunch of cis heteronormative people who are telling the person who grew up gay in this piece how hard it is to be gay. Like, that's another thing that happens in this film. Just
right, again, because they're selfish, because they are only looking at it through the lens of how it affected them as he was growing up, right? It sucks. But there is also there is the moment where they kind of tried to hide it from David, and then, like, mom breaks and tells him everything. Played by Faye Dunaway, by the way. We've already mentioned Gary Marshall. We mentioned Faye Dunaway.
Yeah. But brief. We didn't give, like, God, I love Faye Dunaway. I really do. Like, the cast in this movie was great. I just wish the content were worthy of the acting. I don't even know.
There are some legitimately good threads of dialogue. I won't say
Yes.
that the story is good or that the script itself in all of its pieces is good, but like there is some pretty impressive pieces of dialogue that I really liked. Specifically, talking about our boy, we're here to watch Brendan Fraser. He has that moment where he's talking about the tapestry, how every person is a tapestry, and if you pull one thread, the whole thing comes apart. So like talking about, and what he's doing is he's talking about what it would mean if he were not gay. What he's saying is I wouldn't be who I am.
Right.
I would be somebody completely different. Like that is something that people just don't seem to understand about this, or at least this family doesn't seem to understand about this. And it's like that is a great little piece of a great little moment of dialogue about his whole life, like distilled into just that one sentence.
But the problem is those moments feel disingenuous because a lot of the time they're overwritten. That sequence where Gary Marshall, I'm not sure who he's talking to, but he's talking about the time that like David broke up. Oh, he's talking to Suzanne about it. He's talking to Jennifer Beals' character, and he's talking about while David was away at college and he broke up with his first like real serious boyfriend, Bradley. And he wanted to come home so that the family could make him feel better. And he's like, no, you have to learn how to get through it on your own. And that was such like a nuanced sequence because on some level, that is a lesson to learn. But like the reason why he didn't want his son to come home was because he did not know how to comfort his homosexual son breaking up with a man. And he's like, and in that moment, he seems super remorseful that he failed his son at a moment of weakness. But then within like 10 minutes is the scene where he says, I think you're sick with a disease. And if there was a cure, I would force you to take it. Like,
because what it turns out is that he's not remorseful for the ways he's treated David. He's just remorseful that David is gay. He is sad that David's gayness has gotten in the way of him being able to take care of David.
Yeah.
Which is fucking wild. It is the mental gymnastics that people did do. Like I do want to say, like we're talking about how hokey this movie could be and how over the top. And like it's not that these were like individually, a lot of the shit that gets said in this movie, I have actually heard in the real world, but never is in a 90-minute span from the same two people.
Yeah. I mean, to get a little navel-gazy, to get a little, autobiographical, 8 years ago, when I started my new position at work, the woman who started the same day as me, like a couple of months into it, had a very big, she just like declared, I don't even know where it came from, that like she wouldn't want her children to be gay. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, where did you come from with that? And then another woman who shared our office, who had been there for a while, like, she turned on her in this way, like the pure like spirit of vengeance from Ghost Rider overtook this woman as she's like, it's your fucking child. Really? Like you wouldn't love your kid unconditionally? That's what you're telling me? It kind of made the office a little bit awkward for a little bit. But then that woman who was hired the same day as me, she was gone. And everything kind of settled down. But like when I think about the fact that was 2018, where like I heard somebody echo the sentiments of this film, which was already echoing the sentiments of like the years before, like it hurts a little bit that yes, we like you said, we knew who the bad guys were. This is never something that would even be a thought for you and I based on the ways that we were raised. So like to come across somebody who would think that way and would be like, I would hate my child if they ended up being gay. Like, what the fuck? I don't get it. I don't get it. It's your kid.
Exactly.
It's your child. Like,
it's yeah. No, it is an absurd question. I think the only way to really approach this movie is to think about it as like this is going to just be an absurd parable to get a very important point up across at a time in this country that we were, wrestling with this.
Oh, yeah.
I think this was probably just after Clinton had repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Was that? Or put Don't Ask, Don't Tell in place. Sorry,
yeah,
but
so
Obama
let me
repealed it,
look
but,
up that.
but put Don't Ask, Don't Tell in place. But I mean, like you had both sides coming at homosexuality, right? You had the Democrats or liberals, pitching this kind of shit. Meanwhile, you had the conservative right getting more and more conservative, going down the religious barrel,
Right.
And so like you were a man with no country. It's essentially.
Yeah. So Don't Ask, Don't Tell was 1994. So
94, yeah. So it would have been
so
after.
the film is after,
made
that,
yeah.
but the play was before. So again, maybe that's the reason why we're having this discussion, why this is relevant to be made into a film, is that like this old play that I saw or that I worked on, like these conversations are still happening, and maybe if we can get a larger audience to see it, but like it just seems like the worst part about this film is the pseudoscience. The fact that like it's not a world where this is something that happens. Like, he just happens to be, like, working in a field where, like... And on some level, I kind of dug the argument from his boss of, like, do you really stand by this research that we're doing? Like, or will you only let strangers be tested? You wouldn't let your own child be tested. Because, like, that's a point. That's, like, an ethical point. There are so many better things to focus on in this film that, like... are just wayside place setting to get to what they think is the actual meat of this story. And that is insane to me. Because, like, the ethical question of you want to be a scientist who develops a way to determine, like, traits about the offspring of humanity, but, like, you don't want your own child to succumb to that same testing, then why are you doing this? What is the point of doing that? It's a pretty compelling argument, and it leads to Robert giving consent to have the child tested. That's also kind of a gross scene where she's like, I don't want to have the child tested. And he's like, but my boss wants us to. And she gives into it. It's her fucking body. If she doesn't want her child tested, then like that should be her choice.
Especially by it is beyond reasonable to not want this to happen for so many things, but we are also talking about something extremely personal and intimate, and her husband's place of work being involved.
Yeah.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Her husband's place of work, by the way, that we are introduced to by a scientist opening up a biohazard freaking cooler and pulling out a Sam Adams. Like, no, fucking no. I don't trust this organization. And honestly, and if he went back to his boss and says, I'm on board for it, but Suzanne doesn't want to do it. Like, okay, there's the end of the movie. And I understand that conflict has to exist in order for these stories to happen, but the lack of agency that Suzanne has in the beginning of the film certainly leads to a film where ultimately she gets an abortion because everybody is saying that's what she's supposed to do. Her lack of agency...
now that you've pointed out that that's what the play does, I can see where you're picking up on some of those vibes then. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But like, so she has lack of agency until... So when she goes out with Brandon to the bar, there's a guy at the bar who's staring at their table, and he makes a comment to that guy like, didn't your mother ever teach you it's impolite to stare? And that guy ends up coming outside like, what did you say to me? He drops the F slur, and then like he pushes Brandon, and it ends up knocking over Suzanne, and that leads to some sort of complication with the baby, right? She's bleeding, and there's a fear that she might lose the baby, which, like, honestly, from a narrative standpoint, that was the most compelling moment in this film, was this fact of, like, after all this hemming and fucking hawing, like, if something else were to cause this pregnancy to be terminated, like, you can't put that cat back in the bag, right? Like, undeniably, David knows how his entire family feels about this subject.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Right.
and at that point, she wants to have the child. And, the talk of religion, if religion had been a bigger deal, the idea that, like, this was God's plan was to he saw the mistake he made and he corrected it. Like, that's what Darkly Noon's parents would say, right? Like, I'm just being honest about how some people would have viewed it had it gone that way. Had this film been interested in giving the religious lean of the story any more credence or any more, like, weight. Also, I gotta say, that scene with Rob's parents, I thought it was fine. I thought it really did add something to it, the whole question of the religion and everything. But also, I remember the show Nurses on NBC that was accused of being anti-Semitic for its portrayal of Orthodox Jews. I could also see that being a reason why this show did not perform as well on Broadway. I'm just being honest about that, because it is a very backward sort of moment within it. And it sucks, because a lot of the stuff that's said there is also really compelling. His father being like, it's not about the bad guys, it's about the good guys. You're Jewish, why do you want to be able to identify these things? This is the type of stuff that the Nazis wanted to do. Right? Like,
Exactly.
Like he has a pretty compelling argument against his son mapping out the human genome. And it's like, and it's just not given any weight in this whole thing. There's also a lot of, like, Nazism in this movie, right? With all the Wagner stuff and the ring cycle.
Yep.
Like it's just, and everybody's like, nobody wants to sing this Nazi shit anymore. And it's like, yeah, no, in the 90s, I get it. I understand why people would be like, maybe I'm not going to be in your, like, 6-hour performance of the ring cycle. Jeez, just there's so much going on in this movie. And it really just kind of
really
complicates the messaging of it. I don't know. So, let's, like, but, we're here to talk about Brendan Fraser. I think he does a great job playing the character of David. Am I alone in that? Like, I think his performance is pretty good.
Yeah, no, I think that I mean, the thing is again, he has the benefit of being morally correct in these arguments, right? So when he is kind of looking at the camera, like, with a kind of a mugged look of disappointment and anger, we are also feeling that, right? So he does a fantastic job, but it's also, he's the easiest character to connect with, to get along with, So, like, the Gary Marshall, for instance, right?
Yeah.
I love Gary Marshall. I think he was hilarious. I think that he had a really good sense of like line reads and things like that. He has some of the most, like, funniest ways that he would just go through scenarios and stuff. This movie does him no fucking favors. The character that they have given him is so unforgivable for so many reasons. You talked earlier about that monologue where you said that it looks like he has some remorse. And I was struggling with how much Gary Marshall was putting in to that concept of remorse. Clearly, like, he was clearly putting that in as an actor, with, like, trying to kind of square that with everything that I had just heard about this horrible shit about how he didn't take care of his son.
Yeah. There's just a disconnect, because everybody shows up to play, right? I don't think that John Tenney's monologue at the 1 hour mark had to be performed in the nude, but that doesn't change the fact that, like, his actual, like, that whole sequence of him while he's taking that shower and they're having the argument that culminates in his, like, I don't want to raise it. I don't want to raise a child like that. Like, it is, you see how much he is struggling with the fact that, like, this is the way that I feel. And, like, it doesn't make it better. You're not suddenly like, oh my God, I can't believe he's wrestling with this. Maybe he's right. Like, he's not fucking right. He's not justified in his actions, but you see from the fact that, like, I don't really want to talk about it. And then she's like, well, we're going to talk about it. And he tries to push it off on her. And he's like, at the end of the day, it's your choice. It's your choice if you want to do this. Like, he is acting his fucking ass off, but like, to what end? It doesn't do anything for his character. It doesn't do anything to the story. It's just like,
No.
in the actual play where she ultimately gets an abortion, and I'm sorry to keep focusing on that, but it really does. It's so disparate. Like, it's like they didn't modify I'm all about adaptations, right? We talk about how things should be adapted, could be adapted, will and will again be adapted. But if that's...
I got a story when we get back in June. I just watched Mormon Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, that seems fun.
We will talk about some adaptation.
I feel like there's no pride, all prejudice in a Mormon Pride and Prejudice.
Oh no, they're pretty prideful. Don't let them.
Oh, I just thought that pride was a sin. Sorry. This was fun. I enjoyed this little detour. But yeah, like it's just like, yeah, if you're going to adapt it, if you're going to make it that ultimately she keeps the child despite everything, then you need to modify her character so it seems believable that she gets there. And they just don't do that. And even the fact that she chose to keep the child is explained away in a monologue by Brendan Fraser. It's not her telling us. Like, I don't know.
Because if it was on stage, he would be down, right? Like maybe down like house left or something, and then like there'd be a spot on him as he read that monologue out, but then on stage would be her playing with the kid. That's how you would get the montage effect, you know, like that,
right,
that
exactly.
thing. Anyway, it was very theatrical in a lot of places. But this kind of gets back to the conversation we were having at the beginning where you were like, why would you remake this? I don't think that's the right question. I think the right question is like, did they prove it was worth remaking this? And I don't think they did.
Yeah, that is the better question. I guess just it's one of those sequences. We look at the episodes that we've done, right? Like looking at High Fidelity and like why another High Fidelity with the Hulu series after, the book did all right. The movie did relatively well. But then when they tried to do it in the Broadway to musical, like movie to musical thing of Broadway from the late 2000s, it fell on its face. So where are they seeing the merit in doing High Fidelity again? Same sort of thing. We did another one and I can't remember, where we talked about, like, we've done a couple of the episodes things where like we've looked at things that have been adapted into multiple mediums and the question sometimes of why, right? Like, I mean, How I Met Your Father was kind of that, right? Like, why is the time right for this? Is it just the money of it? Is it something about the world? Like this one, I don't know how the source material gets discovered in order to become this film. Right. And this is an independent film. This is something that is made for Sundance, bought and then distributed on Showtime. It never goes to theaters. So like, that's it. Like, it's just like grand scheme, all of the thing. Like, why did it take so long for The Normal Heart to get a movie adaptation? But like Twilight of the Golds, 3 year after that's considered a failure on Broadway, right?
I would say that it all comes down to the moment where somebody gets to make a choice about what they're going to make. This is the true fact about any movie we see, is that it had to start with somebody wanting to make it, which we don't know how many movies we've never seen because somebody had a thought and thought, never mind, I'm not going to pursue that, right? Or like, and so we talk so much about all these moments in which things are held back from us, right? It comes up a lot in these really shitty fan conversations about like what's owed to us by movie studios and by artists and shit like that. But like, we never think about the idea that like there are movies that are tested, there are plays that are tested, there are things that are tried all the time. And like the ways that people rag on that process as if it was like somehow like shameful that you ever even tried to, put rubber to the road is like, that's not, no. Like, I give kudos to this movie for trying something. It's clear that they had a mission in trying to really kind of draw attention to this specific conversation, right? And all of that. I don't know if they did well. I don't believe they did, but I also am, as we've said many times in this episode, clearly not the right audience for this movie, right? Like this movie is not the lesson that this movie is trying to bestow is is already so ingrained in me that this feels condescending in a lot of ways,
Yeah. I mean, the reason why we're looking at Twilight of the Golds in like outside of the 30 years later thing. So I thought it would be really interesting to look at, the world of 2026 compared to the world of 1996. But the incredibly insane thing about this is the log line on IMDb of pregnant Suzanne learns her healthy fetus likely carries a gay gene like her brother David. She weighs abortion while her family grapples with acceptance during her decision-making process. That sounds wild to me. Like, just as a concept for a movie, for a 92-minute film, that sounds like just insane. That sounds like the type of thing that I would be interested in watching. Because I'm curious, is it going to be like everybody is tested for this? And like we still give you the options, but like everybody's going to kind of look down their noses at you. But you are in one of those families. Like, no. At the end of the day, though, like it jumps through so many hoops to make that test happen. And it's not fun. Right? Like this could be a kind of bananas crazy sort of like story about like a dystopian kind of tale, right? And with my 2026 vision, looking back at 1996, like a dystopia where that's the type of stuff they're testing every child for, like that is interesting to me. But it being just
I don't think that we really did. Did we really do soft sci-fi in the 90s? Because I feel like the problem there is, and this is totally a problem that it made itself. Like this is not, but is that the sci-fi, the genre films of the 90s in general were all hard genres. If it was a horror movie, it was a hard ass horror movie, right? If it was if it was a sci-fi movie, it was always a hard sci-fi movie. Like Independence Day is a perfect example of like there is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Whereas if this movie stayed completely as it is but just kind of dropped the pretense that this was maybe new research and was just like, no, this is just research that exists in this world, and then they do this and have this conversation, that would feel kind of like artsy and bold as a choice, I think, right? But also a lot more interesting of one. It resolves a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. Like, I think of it like a Twilight Zone episode. Like, I want this to just be a world where this is just a thing that is just happening all the time, and this is just how these people are grappling with it. It's I don't know. It's hard because it's such a goofy ass premise that I don't want to really engage with it at all, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like the moment when the wind went out of my sails with this film was when they were at the anniversary dinner and they're like, so Rob, tell us what you're doing. Oh, we're mapping out the human genome. And I'm like, fuck. So like, that's how this is going to happen. This is the catalyst behind her ultimately discovering that her child is going to be, has a chance to be born homosexual. Is because of the research that this guy is doing. Because in my head, it really was like that sort of, like that's a perfect episode of like Black Mirror, right? Right. Where like, because I don't think the Twilight Zone would do it. I even think it's a little out there for the Outer Limits. But like Black Mirror, looking at how the technology of our time can reflect on us and be used against us as like humanity. And I've never watched Black Mirror, so if I'm completely off on it, but it is. If it like this is a world where, you know, and then you could do that whole sort of thing where she's like, there is that little bit of relief because she was nervous to have this child because she's uncertain in her relationship with Rob. I mean, that's the only thing that I will give like real credit to is the fact that her and Rob ended up not together felt like a logical choice. That didn't feel like it came out of nowhere. It really felt like their relationship was on the rocks from the moment that I met them. And also, like, him being mad that, like, I can't believe you had to announce in front of your family that you're pregnant. Why couldn't you have told me first? Well, I came to my parents' house for our anniversary dinner right from the doctor's. So, like, I guess I could have tried to take you aside for a private moment, but, like, she just has no agency. The film writes her with no agency, and the film is sold on the fact that it is her trying to make this decision. But I don't ever really see a moment where it's just her grappling with it. It's always somebody else grappling with it and her being like, oh, that's kind of a good point. I hadn't thought about that. And that seems just...
There was this weird moment really early on where they do focus on just her as she's driving. This is early.
That's the beginning of the movie.
Is on... Right, yeah. And she finds out that she's pregnant, right? And she has this kind of like this look on her face of she's not quite sure that she's happy about that. Like there is a moment of question, and she eventually comes around to smiling, but there is clearly a moment where she's trying to figure out if she is okay with what she has just heard. And so I thought there was gonna be a lot more of that sort of stuff, of just like she wasn't even sure she wanted a kid, never mind a like if this is gonna be one of those things where like, oh, maybe I can use this bigoted excuse so my family gets off my back or type of thing. And no, it never comes up really again. No. Like you said, she's not ever explored really deeply in any meaningful way. So
yeah, I don't know. It just seems like it's a series of failures to the subject matter, to the act, because the actors, all like even Faye Dunaway, like I can't think of a like moment in that, though there is the thing where she's like, where he asks her, if you knew it was that I was going to be gay, would you have had me? And she's like, yeah, it was a different, like that is a pretty powerful sequence as well. But like everybody is given their all to this thing that just does not seem to care like how good this cast is and how much they're bringing out of this script that just ultimately seems like disjointed. And like, I'm not upset that I watched this film, but I am upset that this film, like I can't go back and change it or anything like that. I was hoping that it would do more with the material. And I'm kind of sad that it only really scratched the surface. Is that fair to say? Like, do you get what I'm trying to say there?
Yeah.
Like,
no, I struggle because
I lost you there. I struggle because.
Oh, you got me now?
Yeah, I got you now. Yeah, sorry.
Because it was a different time in the ways in which people talked about this sort of stuff. Needing a movie like this or a script like this to like hit people over the head with some shit was maybe necessary. But the reason that I don't think that we can give it too much clout there is that it doesn't do well.
Yeah, it's true. It is
like it's not a movie that breaks the bank in any way. It doesn't set the world afire in a conversation about abortion and gay genes and homosexuality and all that shit. We do, like, you and I talked about how this movie almost feels like we'd never heard of it before, but also in some way I feel like I've always known about this movie.
Yeah, like it does. It seemed certainly, like, we ripped the Band-Aid off pretty quick in this episode, like reminding people that we have theatrical backgrounds. And like, this is not the first type of play I've worked on that is like this, right? Like one of my my earliest auditions as an adult was for The Normal Heart. And that was legitimately because I was there as like a technical consultant. And then the casting director's like, I kind of like your vibe. Are you willing to read for a couple of roles? Like, it wasn't like I went there to do it. And I know that The Normal Heart is a very different sort of thing, but like, also think about like Angels in America or the Laramie Project. Like, the Laramie Project was the first show I watched in high school. That's what my high school did for like its drama, like its regional drama competition play my freshman year. So like this type of stuff, that is, God, I felt, and it was weird because it was one of those situations where like the school kind of started to treat the kid who played like Shepard in that, like he might like it was such a weird moment in my life. Like I don't even know. So like it's not like this is like I said, there is a long history of this exact type of prejudice against homosexuality, and we talk about gay panic in the 90s as the thing. Like this is what theater was doing at the time, right? Rent in 96 is all about this type of stuff. Like
yeah. No, like I said, there's this idea that at this time, taking just a fucking sledgehammer to the conversation is probably what was needed. And maybe that's why the movie doesn't do well, is because it's actually giving people what they need and not what they want, right? They want to see like the birdcage, right? Like that's the gay experience they want to have in theaters.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
not knocking the birdcage. I love that movie, by the way. It's just that it is a very different type of exploration of homosexuality.
Yes. Sorry, I don't know. I've never actually seen the birdcage. Is I guess the Devin Decker reveal here. I've seen La Cage aux
Folles banger these days, I guess. But
yeah.
Oh yeah, then yeah.
So I know the story.
It is actually a pretty good
adaptation.
Yeah. It's a pretty good adaptation. Mm-hmm.
So I guess the last thing I would say, first of all, I do love Brendan Fraser in this. I think that it's a very interesting role from him. We don't get to see a lot of characters like this. Like it's sort of in the vein of School Ties, but different in a lot of ways. I don't know. Like I liked watching him play a role like this. Is what I'm going to say. He likes exploring
playing the other. Like he likes being in these kind of odd man out stories. I don't even think this is the first time we've talked about this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see this even, in next week when we talk about, how he's kind of the odd man out in that entire film. But yeah, I agree. I think this is the kind of role that he's usually drawn to. So I'm not surprised that he's in it really personally, but it's more of a surprise that more people don't talk about it, I guess. But
but like how many people got to see eyes on it? Like it really does feel like
right, because again, all it takes is one individual producer to say I want this or I don't want that, and suddenly we don't see a thing, right? Yeah. So I totally get it. It's a fair question. Like if the right person had picked this up and put this in theaters, would this have been a more talked about thing? Probably. Yeah, I
would think so. I think that like the premise of it, everybody that I talked to about this film, when I mentioned the premise, their eyes kind of lit up a little bit. Cause it's like on paper, it does seem like something that you could get an interesting story out of. It just seems like in the execution in this particular case, like I'd be interested in seeing the play. Honestly, if I had a time machine, I'd like to go back and see like how it fared when it was touring the country as opposed to how it fared on Broadway. Like I would love to see that. Like I have this weird fascination with this whole discussion cuz like these are the type of like plays that I'm familiar with. These questions, these what ifs, these like light fantasy, light science fiction applied to the real world. Like I just don't think it goes far enough. Honestly.
Yeah.
All right. So last thing I want to say, and then I'll ask you, is I think it's crazy that Mrs. Winterbourne and this are both on Howdy. Do you know what Howdy is? Like
I imagine it's another one of these random free services that keeps popping up.
It is I have to read the Wikipedia description. Howdy is an American subscription, video on demand, over-the-top streaming service available in the United States. The service was launched in 2025 and is owned and operated by Roku. The over-the-top there is just kind of... I guess that might be actually the type of platform. Over-the-top television. Oh, it's a digital distribution service. I read that as like, it's going to be the craziest shit. And
yeah,
like,
I know.
Mrs. Winterbourne and then Twilight of the Golds. If you look at IMDb, both of them are streaming on Howdy. Like I said, I don't know where you could find this. Apparently, it's on Howdy. It's also on Fossum, which I don't know what Fossum is. It's on the Roku channel. Those are where it's streaming, and then it's available to rent or buy on Amazon. So it's not like this is something that was buried either. Like, I acted like it was difficult to find. It was just difficult to find on the 8 streaming services that I do currently pay for.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like,
which is always inevitable in these things.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Ooh, boy, buddy.
Yeah, this was one. Anything else that you want to say about this one? Like, I feel like
I don't think I could recommend a watch for this one. Like, there's not even like a fun campiness level to it that I think is an enjoyable time. Like, this felt like homework. Like, watching this felt like homework.
I'll agree that there's no reason that I would recommend this to anybody at all. Like, it's not.
Maybe look up some clips of some of the wild ass dialogue.
Yeah, like, look up monologues from Twilight of the Golds. Which also, I guess there's the last thing I want to ask. Why is it called Twilight of the Golds? I don't.
Well, that's their last name, right?
Yeah, this is the last name of the family. Yes.
Yeah, well, because with David being gay and supposedly not siring a child, and now this idea that the grandson is possibly going to be gay, so that means that, like, the Gold bloodline is fading.
Yeah.
Because that child won't reproduce. Because it's that fear that because they're gay, they won't somehow be able to then, procreate, which I guess is an important thing for humans to consider at all times. I don't know why, but...
Well, in the 90s, we were full of hope, Sejin. No, I take that back. All right, so then also... That's another thing that is ripped away from this story if she does not lose the ability to bear children. Right? Like that, so first of all, David could have a child. Like, that ability, that is not taken from him because he had a girl get an abortion when he was in high school. Right? But the fact that she, the one who could bear a child, who was going to have a boy, which is how the name lives on, though they don't, I mean, that's paternal, but they're all very Jewish. Like, the fact that they're Jewish is weirdly a big part of this story, but then the religious stuff is just like a fly-by-night sort of like, oh, hi, religion exists as well in this world. Just a reminder. So her losing the ability to do it because of that closed-minded, homosexual people can't have children. It's another thing that, like, just kind of cuts off the legs of the parable that was there, right? Like, because if her having the abortion, her choosing to abort the child because of this 90% chance of it being born a homosexual, and that ultimately having the consequences of her never being able to have children again, that really is sort of like, appreciate the things you have, right? One in the hand is worth two in the bush type of, like, parable messaging lesson that you could take from the play. I mean, that's like the base message. I think that there are much other messages that it's trying to impart in its audience. But, like, if you just want to break it down to a basic parable, that's pretty much what you'd get from the story, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. No, I know. It doesn't work. It doesn't come together. It's a shame because there's a lot of interesting pieces, but it just doesn't make for a great puzzle.
Yeah. But we got to see our boy Brendan Fraser. So yeah, I guess the final takeaway is that, like, this would only be for Brendan Fraser completionists. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's why I said just go look up some monologues on YouTube or something.
Yeah. But so it's not that. But if you are a Brendan Fraser completionist and you want to see everything that he's in, then this is probably something that you're going to come to. But ultimately, I feel pretty confident in us twilighting the Twilight of the Golds here. I don't know if there's any merit to like continue discussing this thing. So, Yeah, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Say Report, where we are celebrating Brendan Fraser History Month 2026. By celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Twilight of the Golds. Oh, I was going to mention that Adam Sandler was in Bulletproof the same year, Man, Adam Sandler's 1996 was kind of better than Brendan Fraser's. I'm just going to say it. I mean, Buscemi wins. Steve Buscemi wins with Fargo, right? Blessed Union of Souls didn't sing about Brendan Fraser or Adam Sandler. They sang about that guy who played in Fargo. I think his name was Steve.
Oh man.
So yeah, and he did a bunch of other stuff in 96 too. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think that like it's just a weird one. But yes, so that's that one. If you want to make sure that you're prepared for our next episode, we are watching Rental Family. And that episode, I want to make sure that I give this information properly. We're recording it on the 24th. Which will be 6 months and a day from when Sejan and I saw that film together in theaters. And that was a great experience. I'm very excited to talk about Rental Family 6 months after we saw it, Sejan. More excited than I was to talk about Jay Kelly 2 weeks after we saw it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
No.
So, yeah.
It's going to be a good one.
So, yeah, if you want to do it, I think Rental Family's up on Hulu right now. I'm not 100%
Hulu, I believe,
sure.
yeah.
I mean, I bought it because I really enjoyed it and I wanted to share it, and it's Brendan Fraser. But yes, so make sure you've seen Rental Family for the next one because that one's going to be full of spoilers, and we just want you to be prepared for what is going to be the final celebration of Brendan Fraser for 2026. That said, thank you very much for listening. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can join our Discord. Invitations to join are available wherever we are on social media, which as of this recording is still Facebook and X, formerly Twitter. Just go to the bio section. There's a link that you can click on in order to get the invite to the Discord and join in and see all the fun that's happening there. Or if you're not on social media, which Sejan is not, so no judgment from the Say Report for that, you can contact us directly, thesayreport@gmail.com. We can facilitate you with a link to join the Discord. Or if the Discord is just too much like social media for you, which I get. Do you know what I got today? I think I can talk about this because we're talking about Discord right now. I use Nitro because we do recording and I want the highest quality while we record. As a Nitro subscriber, I now get Xbox Game Pass.
Really?
Yeah.
They're desperate over there.
Yeah, right. Like I don't know who the desperate party is there, Sejan, because it's no secret we've talked about like we're considering maybe moving away from Discord. Discord's not winning any fans. Like, it's not influencing friends.
Yeah, I will say this. I trust very much in yours and I's tenacity and finding other platforms if we feel we really truly need to. I am not going to trick myself into thinking that Discord is about to go under in any way. I think that it's going to be just like it always is that we're going to see subscribers and users going up no matter how shitty they behave.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the unfortunate truth of it. But, like, it is one of those situations where, like, Microsoft's in the shithouse because of their AI push. Discord is in the shithouse because of their, like, you need real identification in order to continue using Discord. It's real funny that they met in the shithouse and they're like, hey, what if we give the subscribers of one of our platforms the other thing for free?
Well, because what that also means is that they get to then share all of that data.
All that
all of that scanning
data
that they did of your face on Discord is now suddenly freely available for whatever AI bullshit's going on over in Microsoft.
Thank you for joining us on this tangent. So if you're not interested in the Discord train, just contact us. It's thesayreport@gmail.com. We're not distributing that to anybody. That just stays to us. The important thing to remember is that if it's for me, Devin Decker, or him, Sejan Sarowick, just put our names in the subject. Put the name of the Say Reporter you're trying to get in touch with into the subject line, and we will make sure that the email is distributed to the appropriate party. But just remember that if you say something that we think should be talked about on the show, there's a chance it's going to wind up on the show. Any submissions are open to being used for content creation on the show. That's just a thing you should know about the world. I feel weird saying this every week, but it is one of those situations where I feel like it's a good reminder that the stuff that you put out there can then be talked about by other people. I think I say it for me, Siege, and I'm going to be honest with you. It's a reminder to myself that anybody could criticize and critique what I've just said in this episode of the Say Report. But it also keeps our fictional lawyer happy, right? And since we're not giving him any fictional dollars, happiness is the only thing we can provide to our fictional lawyer. All of that said, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Say Report. We look forward to seeing you next week. And without any further ado, William, please bring us home. Bum 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 bum.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.